Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Infernus, and on this episode of Comic Book Reviews, we're doing one that I've honestly wanted to do for a while because this is a movie that is very near and dear to my heart. It's not one of the best movies I've ever seen, but it's a movie that every time I rewatch it or think about it, I like it just a bit more. For this comic book review, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a look at Doctor Strange. So let's just get the most obvious positive thing about this movie out of the way right now. This movie has fantastic visuals. I don't think I really need to say that because anyone who's seen a clip of this movie knows that this movie has phenomenal visuals. Especially when they enter the mirror dimension, it is just complete defiance of logic and anything we know on this earth. Laws of physics, never heard of her. Gravity, okay, that still kind of applies, but you get my absolutely nuts, and it is super interesting to look at. Even when even when they're not in the mirror dimension though, there's still a lot of very interesting things they do with the visuals, especially when they're in the astral plane. That one fight between Stephen Strange and the Dormammu zealot when they're both in the astral plane, and Christine's trying to patch him up after that one fight. That's a very interesting fight, especially with the way he defeats the zealot by basically having Christine. What the frick are those things called? Is it rehabilitate? It's using the defibrillators on like the maximum amount of voltage. And even all the ways that the mystic arts are used, the concepts of the mystic arts in general, it's very interesting and explores a corner of the MCU that I'd honestly like to see a little bit more of. Like, yeah, we see it quite a bit with literally every appearance of Doctor Strange, whether that be the sequel, Infinity War, Endgame, What If. But I'm always interested in seeing more of the mystic arts. Anyways, that's the one part of the movie that everyone knows about. That's the one thing that everyone knows is good. Everyone knows that this movie has fantastic visuals. But what about the real meat and potatoes of this movie? Why is it that every time I think about this movie or rewatch it, I like it more? Well, the reason is right there in the title. Doctor Strange might just have the best character arc in the entire franchise. I know that sounds like exaggeration, but I'm not exaggerating. This is a character who should be unlikable, and yet somehow they actually manage to turn him around and redeem him. Where do I begin with this guy? Let's just start at the beginning. When he's, Doctor Strange, the neurosurgeon, before he loses his hands. Fair enough. He's the best doctor in his field. I don't know if I'd have an ego if I was the best doctor in my field, but I can't exactly blame him for having an ego. Loses his hands, falls into a deep, dark place, angry at everyone, yelling at them. And again, I can see where this might turn some people off from his character, but you understand it. His hands were his most vital asset. He's a neurosurgeon. If he can't have control over his hands, how is his job? So of course he's angry, and of course he's like, I can tell that he's not really angry at people. He's angry that every type of modern medicine is failing him. So he looks into the mystic arts at Kamar-Taj. And initially, he doesn't even begin to take them seriously. He just sees it as a bunch of nonsense, wizardry stuff. And then the Ancient One pulls a Puss in Boots and says, "Hey, you want to see something cool?" It sends him on an acid trip, which might just be one of the most interesting scenes in the movie to look at, if I'm being honest. And then from then on, he actually takes the mystic art seriously. Sure, he has that one moment where he complains about the portal creating not working properly because of his hands, and then they showed the one guy who only has one hand who's still able to do it despite having a nub on his right arm. But other than that, he doesn't really complain for the rest of the movie. He even apologizes. And not to mention, this is my favorite part of the whole movie right here. He goes into the dark dimension to fight Dormammu and puts himself in a time loop where he dies over and over again because it'll keep everyone he cares about safe. When you go from egomaniac who's angry at everything because his hands don't work to I will literally trap myself in here forever if it means everyone else is safe, and actually have it feel natural, that's when you know you've developed a character. And like even Dormammu, he doesn't show up until the final battle, but his presence is felt throughout the movie because you know if anything bad happens to the Sanctums, hell is going to break loose. And then there's Caecilius, the movie's one and only blemish, and this just sucks because they had a good actor. I mean, I can't speak personally because I'm not too familiar with Mads Mikkelsen, but I hear he's a great actor. In Motivation, someone who has scorn for the Ancient One and Camartage for casting him out. But other than that, there's nothing really interesting about him. They don't really give him a personality that's fun to watch, or they just don't do a lot with him outside of having that motivation. It's like that motivation is his personality. But the problem is that you can't make motivations entire personalities. You gotta have a personality with that motivation, and Caecilius kind of just doesn't have one. And it's honestly a shame because if they had handled him better, this movie might have actually been perfect. I'm not kidding. This has fantastic visuals, a phenomenal character arc for its main character, and a decent presence felt by, well, a decent presence that you feel from just the big bad being. I don't even know how to describe Dormammu, the big dark thing in the dark dimension. It's just held back by one forgettable villain. Now, that being said, that's only going to knock off half a point on the score. Like I said twice, sorry, through this review, this is a movie where every time I think about it or I rewatch it, I like it just a bit more. And if you're able to do that, that is not only impressive, but it just shows how good of a movie you've made. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for my review of Doctor Strange. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.